709-589-4406. This March 24, 2024 show. Pick up a little bit from where we left off on Friday. And we got some nuclear news cycle to get through. Lots of great stuff to talk about. And we were trying to identify... we have drone footage that we were covering on the last show. There was 736 pictures that was released shortly after the meltdown, or not released shortly after the meltdown, but 10 years in January 2021. And it's perplexing why they released the pictures from the drone. And when we zoomed in, we noticed all the reactors in the first group, 1, 2, 3, and 4, were pixelated. And the common spent fuel pool was pixelated, completely pixelated out, which is right behind the reactor 4. This reactor 4, it's pixelated. 1, 2, and 3 were all pixelated, but in some of the pictures you can see the buildings, a bit of the buildings. So it was more about the surroundings also. And because it had obviously ejected a huge amount of inventories out of the buildings after the explosions. And so there was explosions that tossed reactor fuel pools, around 8 reactor cores out of the buildings. That was reactor 3, and over there is reactor 1. And these were significant explosions. Let me do that again for you. Reactor 1 to your left, reactor 3 to your right. And so that ejected reactor cores out of the buildings. And so we got clean footage, and that was, everybody had these pictures right away. We got lots of pictures of reactor 4. We also got lots of pictures that show reactor 4 is gone.
Prime standing is on top of what used to
acknowledge has lost its inventories, and the inventories were at the top of the buildings. That's reactor 4. Reactor 4 to your right, reactor 3 to your left. That's really easy for any academic in the nuclear industry to say, yeah, it's all gone. Yet they didn't. Not one worldwide has come out and said that. I mean, even when you get the original pictures, every nuclear scientist on the planet would have known reactor 3 and 4 in particular had lost their entire inventories. But certainly by 2013, when they stripped them down with the homeless and destitute and the victims of society, it was obvious there was nothing left. But yet no nuclear scientist on the entire planet has come out and acknowledged that. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of the reactors. We had several thousand that 1900 that TEPCO actually released. And I've done a 6-video series on that. And so reactor 1 and 2 are not so obvious because reactor 2 kind of looks like it's intact, but we know it's gone, the reactor core and the fuel pools. And reactor 1, we know it's gone and the fuel pools. And we're talking about 4 decades of reactor cores and the fuel pools. And so with reactor 3 and 4, they built these contraptions off-site and then installed them over the buildings. They don't physically touch the buildings because obviously the buildings are completely destroyed, but the average person has no concept of that. And so what they done was pretended that they were in a building to get the fuel out of a pool that no longer exists. And so who knows what else they've been up to. And so I had a voice in my head drive me nuts on Friday, and I to do a video on the 736 pictures from the drone. And I think I understand why now they released the pictures of the drone, because I couldn't, in 2021 when the pictures were released, it was hard to comprehend why they were released. And when you zoomed in, and we done that on our last video, and we went through all the important videos, or I think we did, and I got to go through them. I went through them today and tonight, and I got to go through them again several times this week to be sure now that I didn't miss more stuff. So reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4, and behind it are pixelated severely. Reactor and common spent fuel pool is pixelated severely. You can't see nothing. Also, reactor 6 was pixelated severely, and the pump house. Sorry. Okay. We're trying to identify an abnormality on this site where we noticed on our last look on Friday up there at the top. I'll move up there for you. But I got everything marked out for you. I went into the paint and drew everything. So this section up here is pixelated. And we didn't know exactly, and when we done the last video, where, but we have a marker right here. This is a pretty distinct marker. So that was a good spot for me to start from. Let me see if I can fix myself there. Okay. So that section there, you can see the square in the center. So there's a square up there and two more squares in particular that stand out. But that whole area is pixelated out. So that's quite a long ways away. And one of the markers we have is this site here. And this is kind of an interesting site. And this is mostly surrounded by trees. It's isolated. And it's on the edge of the site. So I found it. That's that section over there. And these pictures, when they were released, they actually drew you a path right to that section. But originally I didn't zoom in on it because there didn't seem to be a need to. But on Friday's video, we did zoom in to our horror. We found severe pixelation above it. And so, but this is a very long way away, and I'm going to walk you through it because it'll make more sense for everybody. So it's up there in the corner. The reactors are over here. So that's the ocean over there. And way up here, west of it, is that section. And so when you zoom in on that section, you can see that unique. So you got this one by himself with a circle, a visible circle around it, and then you got the four connected up there, and you can see it in that picture right there. So we're pretty sure, but we got a couple more markers. So there was this almost a U shape in the bottom one, yellow, and above it was a parking lot with two buildings with a significant blue roof. Just bear with me. So up there is those markers, and I'll do a better job of those places in a second. Yeah. And so right here is the pixelation right there. And right here is those triangle barrels, so shape, right? So I got that worked out for sure where it's to. But I still haven't been able to identify it. And I downloaded, well, I got 90-something screen captures of the site yesterday, trying to put my finger, and it's very difficult because the site is completely changed today, right? Okay, so that blue circle is the section. So you're headed towards the ocean when you go that way. So this picture here, when you go this way, you're headed towards the ocean. And so clearly there's a building here. And another one over there that's pixelated out, which is in that blue section. And I'll highlight that too in a second, hopefully. Yeah, no, we'll get there. Yeah, the blue section. Just bear with me. So, watch this sequence as it drifts, because that triangle weird shape was over right here. This is the pixelated area. And it draws you a line right to the ocean. So it's drawing a line right down to the reactor building. So it's almost straight up from the common spent fuel pool. Right, so it's straight west of the common spent fuel pool. My volume is up. My volume down. Well, my volume should be up. Just bear with me 1 second here. Mic check. Yeah, my volume is up like normal on my side. The volume is up on my side. I'll go up another couple of notches right now. I'm just trying to figure out what, because people are saying they can't hear it, but everything's normal on my end. Everything is normal on my end. I turned it up a little bit. Just let me check the comments here very quick. Okay, everybody, thank you. Okay, folks, stop. Just stop texting me. That's enough. I got it. Okay, so let me just go through it again. How about that? But the volume should be the same. Everything is the same. Everything is normal. I haven't touched anything. Nuclear. Okay, so reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the drone pictures, we showed this on Friday's video, were pixelated out when you zoomed in on the multi-reactor site area. Also the common spent fuel pool, I'll just do a summary of it. Common spent fuel pool area, and which is completely pixelated out, and you can see the 45-gallon drums pushed up by the tsunami behind it. And also reactor 6, which is the first one, and this one is reactor 5 in this pump house, and reactor 6 in the pump house. So reactor 6, the common spent fuel pool, reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 were pixelated out. But on Friday's video, we noticed an abnormality, which was up there. And we're, just you can see the that spot highlighted right now. It's pixelated out. And there seems to be 3 buildings up there in particular that are pixelated out heavily. But they got the whole area is pixelated out. So they drew a pretty big line for the pixelation. So there's some markers. That's one of them. And that's a unique marker. And there's nothing else on the site that I can find that resembles that. There was only one spot. And I highlighted it for you over there. The LAR. So that one there is over there to your left. Which is right up at the edge of the site. Now there was 2 other markers I could use on these fine maps or these drone videos to try to orient myself. And so here you're heading towards the ocean when you go that way. And right here, that whole area up there is the pixelated area. And the 2 yellow ones up there are the 2 landmarks that I'm using. And so the blue marks the spot Now, it could be bigger than that. It's not smaller than that, but it could be bigger in that section that I got drawn there. But that's the general area. You can see a building for sure. And on the corner of the yellow over there, I'll go over there for you. You can see another building. There seems to be a building there and a building here, small buildings here, and a building right there. And when you look at the drone pictures, that corresponds. They're pixelated out. So the yellow up there are my landmarks, and this one is your landmark, right? And so that's how I oriented myself. Now, because I spun this picture around, took a screen capture. So this picture is oriented the same as the other pictures towards the ocean. I apologize for the low volume. I got no idea what's going on. I got no idea. I got too many buttons. That's the problem. If you sneeze, one of the buttons move and everything goes to shit on us. So the pixelated area corresponds with that map. Now we're oriented now. Now we know where we're to. So when you look at it this way, you're headed towards the ocean, but down here is that weird one right here, right? So in the next frame, that picture is no longer in it. Because you're coming this way, rather. This way is towards the ocean. So anyway, we use that to orient ourselves. And we're trying to work out what the hell we're looking at. So the blue section is the stuff that's pixelated out. And I do believe, now, because I've done a radio show on and off when I wasn't on the ocean doing research expeditions, every Sunday with Jeff Rintz and Yoshi Shimatsu. And Yoshi Shimatsu is a retired forensic investigative journalist with the Japan Times. He done the Sunday edition of the Japan Times, which is a pretty prestigious position, by the way. And he was talking about a bomb facility at Fukushima, a secret bomb nuclear weapons facility in Japan. And Japan, we know, had a ridiculous amount of plutonium, right? And so it wouldn't have been very hard for them to create a bomb. Now, I'm not saying that's what it was in the blue there, because that's... But that is something you want to put into the equation. You want to consider it. Now, I didn't say this picture is 4 days after. And when my video is over, when I turn my video off, the comments stop on your end. Now, there's about a 15-second delay. And somebody was suggesting, well, Rock was suggesting that my videos keep running, and that's when my videos are longer. That's simply not true. And I left a comment right away within 5 minutes of his comment, and my comment disappeared. I notice other people's comments are disappearing too, right? But my comment disappeared, and this is my site, so why would my comment disappear? And what it is my videos after 12 hours will get a few seconds longer. Not multiple minutes, but a few seconds. And that my comment section doesn't show up for 12 hours. Everything is at 12 hours. And my videos don't show up in the search alongside of my video, period, let alone 12 hours. And that you know how silly I am. I use all kinds of other people's sites, live streams, to see if it's happening to them. So I've done all of that, and I recorded everything. And I have a huge folder on that stuff where it's not happening to them. It's only happening to my site. And it's been going on since I started this particular site. Because he took down my other site when I was on a research expedition looking for spiders. Ooh, scary spiders. And it's because the spiders are missing. Normally you check the spider webs for insects in each area to see what kind of population lives in each of these microclimate areas. And they're missing. And normally there's close to 500,000 per acre. So that's significant. And because spiders bioaccumulate radiation 1,000 times more than background, because they liquefy their victims, their prey, rather, and it's an easier way to bioaccumulate radiation than other insects, right? Yeah, no, the chat doesn't stay on for a few minutes because I check it after the show is over. It doesn't stay on my end, and it never did. It stays on for about 15 seconds, Rock. And my video is not a couple of minutes longer, they're just a couple of seconds longer, right? But anyway, let's keep going. I just wanted to mention it because my comment got taken down when I replied to his comment on Friday's video, which is totally bizarre. I'm an administrator, so I shouldn't have that issue. So these pictures are in a sequence, and look where the sequence takes you, right down to reactors, and there's reactor, common spent fuel pool in reactor 4, 3, 2, and 1, that way, right? So it actually drew us a line. Look at this. It drew us a line right to it. And I missed it the first video that we done, and this is the area, it's all pixelated. And so I can't tell you Pacific because I still haven't worked it out, but we do know now where it's to. I'll give you a wider picture. Hang on. Maybe. Okay, yeah. So it's up there. I thought I had one mark on that one too. Yeah, it's right there, which is up there. And the reactors are right there. The common spent fuel pool is right over right there. And it draws a straight line right up. And then I'll move over and show it to you, actually. So maybe somebody else can do the legwork and put it in the comment later what this section right here is. And that's your marker right here. And then this section right here. And then these two buildings in the parking lot. So that's how I'm oriented anyway. And so we're right up at the far end of the site. And we know it's the far end of the site because you can see the farms. Because almost every nuclear power plant is going to be surrounded by farms. So we got lots of farmland right here. Right? That's all farmland. And so it's right up on the edge, this section right here. And so we don't know what this section right here is. I spent about an hour and a half last night and gave up on it because it was late. I was watching the fights because I don't really watch anything, right? I'm too busy working. But on Saturday nights, when possible, I like to watch the fights, the paid fighters, the prize fighters. Because when I was young, I was a fighter myself, right? Not like those guys, obviously, but I can definitely hold my own. Okay, so they do it twice, from what I can tell. Bear with me. I don't screw this up. Here we go. Okay, so then they draw a line again all the way up there. They're coming in from the ocean. So this was on purpose. They released those particular pictures to draw us a line all the way up. But this one here doesn't take us all. That's the last picture. You can zoom in on that section. So you got these two, which you remember. You got that one over there, 3/4 of a rectangle. And so that's your markers. And then that's the section up there that's pixelated. So when we look in on it, now there's a group of administration buildings to your straight above it up there. I don't know if they're administration buildings. I shouldn't say anything because I don't know. But you got a significant group of buildings up right here. That's a significant group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30. So there's a significant amount of buildings. There's more over here, 31. So there's probably 40 or 50 buildings way up there. Stupid nuclear power. Nuclear power is such a scumbag's industry, eh? And so they drew two lines, one line coming out and another line going right in. And then that was the last picture. But so it doesn't show you in that picture, it doesn't show you that, right? It's just shy of that. But there's no mistake in what we're looking at. That's the spot. So why did they draw us a line, two different lines, one from there down to the ocean and one from the ocean to there? That's what they were trying to warn you about. No doubt about it now, right? They were trying to warn us about that section right there. That's why they released it 10 years later. And we don't know who they are. It was released at TEPCO's website. It showed up in a news story from China. And it was at the end. I had like 25 pages of searches with 8, 9, 10 stories on each page. And you know what I'm like? That's prime for Dana. So I go through every story that I can. And a lot of stories are kind of useless, right? But you got to read through every story to find out. And you can just do a quick search on a lot of pages if they're very long. Right? You can just do a search for words. And that's how I do some pages when there's big essay pages. And then if it's important, I'll go read the whole story, right? And then I'll read it again and screen capture it. And then that night we'll talk about it, right? And so when these pictures came out on the Japanese site, I translated it, and they didn't tell you much. There was not really, and the same thing with TEPCO, didn't tell you much. It just, there was and if you go back to my video in 2021, when I done a video on this before, underneath it are links to TEPCO's website. You can download the same pictures. And I got to try to remember to put them up on my website tomorrow or something, or tonight or tomorrow. Probably tonight, maybe, if I remember. I'll put all of these pictures in RAW format, and I'll also put them up in the zoom in format, because I didn't zoom in on everything. But these pictures are unbelievably, I missed this the last time, right? So why did somebody, whoever released those pictures, drew us a line away from there, directly to the ocean, to the reactors, and then shortly after that drew us another line directly to it? And that was a warning. They were warning you. And nobody's ever acknowledged this. Nobody's ever talked about this. This is the only site. And Friday was the first time, and tonight is the second time that we've ever had this conversation, or anybody else. I've never seen a conversation about this unknown up there, this pixelated area that we don't know nothing about. But it is far away from the ocean. So it wasn't tsunami damage or anything like that. It's a very large area, and it's completely pixelated out. So what is it, I wonder? And I don't know. I don't have the answers. But because there was nuclear meltdowns going on, there could have been a research reactor up there that they were hiding away and that also melted down. I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions, obviously. And so it was reactor 1, 2, 3, 4. The common spent fuel pool is 5. And reactor 6 were all pixelated out. And the unknown one, number 7, is pixelated out. We just showed you all the way from the beginning. And please stay on topic if you're in my comment section. I work really hard to do the things I'm doing, and I like for people to stay on topic. And so reactor 6 is also pixelated. So you got reactor 1, 2, 3, 4. You got the common spent fuel pool, which had around 12 million pounds into it that they emit to. So typically it's double, because they don't have a repository. Everything is stuffed with decades of reactor cores. There's reactor 6, and then there's that unknown spot west of common spent fuel pool. And so the night before that, on Thursday night, we covered the world leaders, these weren't world leaders. These were all dictators from very impoverished countries that nobody really knows. The majority of them, nobody has no concept who they were. The first ever nuclear energy summit started and flopped the next day. The media came out with a bunch of blah, blah, blah type stories. And then today there's nothing. It was a total flop. It was a total flop. It was like having a marathon and you got 10,000 people showed up. And then everybody ran 50 feet and went back home and said, the hell with it. It was a total no-go. New Brunswick Point Lepreau nuclear power plant. The Canadian reactors are sadistic demons, eh? Bear with me. They release so much radiation, it's terrifying. And this one here, the Point Lepreau in New Brunswick, wait for it. I think this is it. Bear with me. Yeah, that's it. And it's an absurd amount of radiation comes out of that each year legally. So in the United Kingdom, there's 8 trillion becquerels of liquid and vapor of tritium-3H, not the natural tritium from the atmosphere, but anthropogenic man-made tritium-3H, which they don't use that in the name there for some reason. So United Kingdom, the size leaves 8 trillion. You got the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, France, and all combined, they're irrelevant compared to just a single nuclear power plant in Canada. Canada is unbelievably evil on a level that dwarfs the world, the entire planet. It's 16,400,000 trillion atoms of tritium-3H a year alone. This is unbelievable numbers. And so why is the New Brunswick plant releasing so much radiation compared to the other CANDU reactors? I mean, the other CANDU reactors are definitely releasing a ridiculous amount of radiation compared to the rest of the world. But I mean, 16,400,000 trillion atoms a year? 16,400,000 trillion atoms a year. It's hard to wrap my mind around it. This is the plant. This is an absurd, and it's not like it's a big plant either. It's nowhere near Fukushima, for instance. Size plant, but yet it's releasing a prodigious, ridiculous, and absurd, a horrifying amount. It was built on the edge of the Bay of Fundy. Now I dove the Bay of Fundy with a 50-foot tide exchange twice a day. It's like, oh my God, man. Well, 4 times a day, but you couldn't do nothing there. It was hellish. It's just too fast, right? Since 2014, the Point Lepreau nuclear generating station was one of the poorest performing reactors among dozens of similar facilities in 5 countries. A pair of unflinching reports commissioned by the New Brunswick Power about the troubled plant suggest. And the US-based energy consulting firm ScottMadden found that New Brunswick Power spent less on upkeep at the Point Lepreau since it completed a major refurbishment in 2012. It just got a 10-year extension, right? Which is hideous, by the way. That owners of last year, that owners more reliable reactors and to provide evidence that the Point Lepreau troubles may be connected to a failure to invest enough on maintenance. It's not a failure. It's on purpose. One big stupid disease factor, isn't it? And then they invoked the 50-year-old Monticello nuclear disease factory in Minnesota and the Mississippi River that lost absurd amount of radiation and covered it up last year, right? We covered it extensively for several weeks. And they compared that to the Point Lepreau in a recent evaluation. But why? It's not a CANDU reactor. In 11 years from 2013 to 2023, Lepreau suffered 400 more days of downtime than originally projected, because the Canadian nuclear industry is just stupid. They're stupid. If you look up stupid in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of the Canadian nuclear industry. Costing the utility up to $1 billion in lost production and repair costs that have been battering the utility finances. Some of that excess downtime was caused by scheduled maintenance outages. Well, it just had a refit. That took longer than planned, and about half were forced. Not only did it take longer than planned, you're talking about months. And about half were forced lost days caused by sudden unexpected breakdowns. Well, they're not really unexpected if you know the Canadian nuclear industry. Said the utility has spent between 100 to 120 million per year on capital improvements under a single unit nuclear plant. These are single units, and they release more radiation than Europe, a single reactor in Canada of tritium-3H, showed the highest marginal returns in performance improvement. By contrast, it found the annual capital spending of less than 80 million slightly more likely than not to result in performance decline. It's a stupid amount of money, by the way. In New Brunswick's power case, it said annual capital spending over an 8-year period averaged below 50 million. So if you're spending 120 million per year, that's it's $270,000 a day plus. $270,000 a day. And on Thursday's show, we covered. I went around and I spammed all the videos on the Nuclear Energy Summit, 5 a.m. in the morning. Because my show was over here at midnight. I got a couple hours sleep. 5 a.m. I get the alarm clock went off, and I got up and started spamming. And then I started getting blocked, of course. And I got spammed off some pages and then blocked. Dirty bastards. Nice perp walk of shame. That's what that was too, a perp walk, eh? All the usual suspects, the usual criminals. And some places had no comments and no views, so I took over. CNN had 6.9 million subscribers. CNN has almost 7 million subscribers, only 22 people watching it. That's some nuclear renaissance right there, folks. 6.9 million subscribers, only 22 people watching the live stream. I shouldn't feel so bad. That friggin' pig right there. Raphael Grossi, Raphael Grossi spent most of his time staring into space. Whenever the cameras would look at him, he looked around like a kid with a candy jar. These are despicable subhuman species, eh? But anyway, I was going around spamming all the videos, Buck Rogers, some sites, and so I was constantly searching for any new videos picking up. The International Atomic Energy Agency won't let you comment on their videos. Scumbags. Such is life. So CP says nuclear for dummies. No, they are not. One is being built as we speak in Romania. And then they tried to talk about nuclear submarines and some surface vessels as small modular reactors. Well, if that was true, they would have been implemented everywhere already, right? No, because they're incredibly, the ones that are in the ocean are unbelievable pollutants, right? They're using the ocean as a cooling system. It's a totally different system. And they're releasing their pollutions into the ocean regularly. So on Thursday there was another earthquake near Tokyo. And wait till you get a load of this one. Measured a preliminary magnitude of 0.5 ploim. What the hell is a ploim, Dana? I don't know, man. How do I know? I don't know. It just came out of my friggin'... Let me try it again. An earthquake measuring a preliminary magnitude of 5.3 hit an area near Tokyo on Thursday. That kind of reminds me of this guy here. Did you watch the video of this guy? I played a little clip of him. And he used to suck his whole bottom lip right in his mouth. And his lip used to stick out about this far. Really something. But he was there begging for the International Atomic Energy Agency to put nuclear in his shithole little piece of impoverished country. And the people are great, but the politicians have robbed it blind, is what I'm trying to say, actually. With its focus in southern Ibaraki Prefecture. So this earthquake on Thursday was on land, a 5.2 on the Japanese scale, which is a 7 point something on the Richter scale. But that one's right on land, right by Tokyo. And that shook Fukushima prefectures on top of that. Japanese government issued an emergency earthquake warning. Yeah, that was right by Tokyo. And we know it shook Fukushima. Buried it again. Well, there's no tsunami issue because it's on land, you morons. Right, it's on land. You don't get a tsunami from an earthquake on land. And that was gets you to look at, and the depth of around 46 kilometers. In Japan, when they talk about their earthquakes, they'll talk about the depth, but they won't tell you the distance of cities and stuff like that. But there's a couple of stories coming up of earthquakes just today. And the registered lower 5 on Japan's seismic intensity scale of 7, which is 7.2, 7.3 on the Richter scale. Just bear with me 1 second here. Just a little burnt out because I done a show on Friday and done a hard show on Thursday. I got up at 5 a.m. to get everything ready for that show. So I'm starting to feel it tonight. I've been at this for quite a while. My goodness, I'm tortured. And then I started off with bad audio. I don't know what the hell happened. Hang on here. Because I'm just looking for those stories on the earthquake today. I got no idea. I must have screwed up. Anyway, let's keep going. .3 magnitude earthquake hits Tokyo and surrounding areas, and the epicenter was at a depth of about 46 kilometers. But there was 2 other earthquakes today, and they give you the depth and the distances. But Japan doesn't do it. Because Japan's a piece of shit country, right? A lower 5 in Japan's seismic intensity scale. So a lower 5 is a 5.5 because their scale, Shindu scale goes to 7. It's 1.5 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, all the way to 7, right? And so that's a 7.85, 7.9 on the Richter scale on land. So that's a significant earthquake, and there was no other stories about it, nothing. Again, there's no tsunami warning because it's on land. Deep geothermal can solve the need for baseload power. That was Wednesday. There's enough energy, there's 2 billion times more energy under your feet than we're using currently on the entire planet available for geothermal. And if you took 10% of what you're burning on nuclear, I should put that over here in case it accidentally hits it. That way it doesn't go over the keyboard and the laptop, the external laptop, right? Which reminds me, we got a polder, don't we? Yeah, Dana, you got a polder. You frig over and talk about it. Should nuclear plants, nuclear dumps, nuclear weapons sites that are adjoining farms, because almost every one of them are adjoining farms, be closed to preserve life to the suite right away? And there's only one answer, yes. Because all nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools, and almost every fuel pool on the entire planet is surrounded by farms. Looks like I clicked something I shouldn't have. That's okay, I'll find my way back. Yeah, deep geothermal. Earth's a tremendous source of power sitting on a dynamite ball of fire from which only a few regions have been able to extract energy. Now, it's everywhere. You can dig anywhere you can dig down, you'll hit geothermal eventually. The problem is once you get so deep, you get up into high temperatures, it's very difficult on the drill bits because universities and governments won't contribute it to the research. But they got 50 years burnt of stupid amount of money on fusion, which is never going to come to fruition. Because like last year was 507 gigawatts of renewables came online. Like most reactors are nowhere near a gigawatt, right? So it's equal to somewhere between 600 and 725 large nuclear power plants in the animosity equivalent in renewables. Came online in just 12 months. So if we put everything should be geothermal and then wind and solar after. But let's just say we've done wind and solar. And we've done it right across Canada. I'm in Canada. I apologize right away, of course. We're Canadian. And we put wind and solar right across the country. Well, the wind's always blowing in 80% to 90% of the country. Always. And so you're never going to run out of electricity. And the excuse, the wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun doesn't shine all the time. Well, for the wind blowing all the time, that's simply true everywhere, yes, but it's just temporary. But the next community, wind could be pretty strong, and the community on the other side of it, wind's pretty strong. But one community might be sheltered a little bit and doesn't get such wind, right? That day, but that night and the next day and the next week, you'll get lots of wind. And so if you had it right across the country, you can draw power from anywhere. Because Nikola Tesla gave us the ability to transmit power long distances, right? And so they come up with a solution now to drill deep enough. Quatsi Electric is one of them. And there was another one out there that they're using pneumatic hammers. First they use water jets at 25,000 psi head of the drill bit. So 25,000 psi water jets are slicing up the rocks, and then they have pneumatic hammers right behind that, pounding the sliced up rocks into crumbs, and then the drill bit goes down through it and inserts the pipe, right? So it's very fast compared to conventional drillings for oil rigs and everything else, right? And so that technology is coming to fruition this year. But we would already be here if it wasn't abandoned and ignored on purpose by your loving universities that hate your guts. Scientists ponder fighting climate change by making clouds brighter and thicker. And brought to you no less by than Popular Mechanics, which was bought up by public relation firms for the industries, and are used to, the average person, because like Popular Mechanics, if you go back 50, 60 years, everybody's house had a big stack of Popular Mechanic magazines, right? And so a lot of people, when they first go online, their first year or two, they literally live at places like Popular Mechanics because that's something they're familiar with, see? But it's a really nasty place to go. They're like some of the worst humans we come across now are Popular Mechanics. Why would you want to use? Now they've been using clouds. They use cloud seeding among who knows the horrific techniques, right? So if you can go way back, like I'm only going to go back as far as Vietnam, for instance. Vietnam, they had perfected geoengineering modification clouds so good they can keep the monsoons raining for another 2 months. And the idea was flood the tunnels where the Viet Cong were hid away. And they also notorious to wash out all the trails, supply trails, and communities that were supporting the Viet Cong. They would wash those, like, if you look at the Vietnam, what they done with the Agent Orange, where they sprayed the whole country, the entire country, with Agent Orange. They killed all the insects and all the plants. They defoliaged the entire country with a chemical weapon known as Agent Orange, made by the same company that came out with GMO, right? Disgusting. They're despicable, and the police can't do anything about it. Politicians apparently can't do nothing about it, only support it, right? And that's who we should blame for all of our issues is the people that were supposed to do something about it and didn't. The reality today in most markets is slow but steady decline in nuclear market share. That was shit-face herself, no? And she admits it's a slow but steady decline. Well, last year they lost 1.7 gigawatts of nuclear. And there was 507 gigawatts of renewables came online. So 1.7 gigawatts is basically 2 large nuclear plants, a little bit better than 2 large nuclear plants. So 507 gigawatts of renewables in a 12-month period is over 600 large nuclear plants coming online. They can't compete with it, see? So what they're up to is robbing the system as much as they can, looting it, I should say, before reality, the rest of humanity's reality sets in, if we last that long. Because we're being exterminated on a number of different ways, but the radioactive fallout is our biggest enemy as far as I can tell, because it exterminates all the species. She said nuclear accounts for 9% of the world's electricity mix. And that's a stretch, by the way, because what they're doing with the reactors they currently got, they're all running at peak power all the time in order to keep their percentage up, right? And they've been doing that for quite a few years. And we criticize it because the reactors, as they get older, become brittle from the neutron bombardment, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays, the neutron bursts. And it breaks the integrity down of the infrastructure. And because these are 1,000, 2,000 pounds per square inch containment units, and they're very hot, having them brittle is literally the stupidest thing you can do. And that's why the original charters was a 30-year expiry because of the neutron bombardment and the beta rays, the gamma shines, and everything else. It's all hokey pokey, and the problem is they're killing all the species and the lifeblood of the ecosystem, the water. They're purposely attacking the water of our planet, all of it. They have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams at this stage. Because Fukushima was a pulse event. You had 80 years of emissions, significant emissions. You had all the nuclear wars they had. You call it nuclear testing for some reason. It's the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. That's a nuclear war, no matter how you look at it. The war is on us and the species, and the lifeblood of this ecosystem is water. Like we all should be protecting water with every fiber in our body. None of us can survive without water. And because there's so much of it here, people take it for granted. But you can poison it, see? And the best way to poison it is through the nuclear industry. And every nuclear power plant worldwide is hemorrhaging radiation into the ecosystem. They're all pumping it into the waters. And look how many nuclear plants are set up in Canada, United States, and the Great Lakes, the biggest aquifer in North America. That's not an accident, right? All the national laboratories are set up in the biggest aquifers on top of that, right above them, which are the animosity equivalent of large lakes like the Great Lakes. Destroyed already. The co-host by the International Atomic Energy Agency and Belgian Prime Minister, Alex, as Raphael Grossi likes to call him. Piece of shit, Grossi. Unlock the full potential of nuclear energy, including access to competitive financing for lifetime extensions. Well, lifetime extensions, like some reactors are getting like 40 years extension. It's insane. And it's desperation. There's no need to do it because geothermal renewables can fill in the gap 100 times quicker and easier. New nuclear plants, the early deployment of advanced reactors. There's no deployment of advanced reactors, and there's no deployment of small modular reactors worldwide whatsoever, and there's not going to be. Look, like NuScale was the only one with a license application into the regulatory agencies worldwide. So how can anybody suggest that there's some deployments? Right, because like for small modular reactors, you got to have a license in to the regulatory agencies. It's going to take 600-700 people, or 3 or 4 minimum. Say, I'm assuming this, if I remember correctly, actually 600 or 700 people will go through 1 million pieces of paper for the license application. You'll find all kinds of flaws, and then they'll note everything, and they'll talk to the vendor and the stakeholders and that. And then they'll submit it back to them 3 or 4 later and say, look, you got to fix all of this and then resubmit your application. At least those parts of it anyway. You're still looking at 10, 12, 14 years before you can get a license through. So once you got the applications, now you got to raise the money for site. You got to do site selection. You got to do leveling, grading. You're looking at about $500 million just to set a site up. There's very little real estate left now for that kind of applications, right? But even then, first you got to do it is go to a national laboratory basically and build the small modular reactors. You got to run it for years, get the kinks out of it. Then you got to redesign it because you got to get the kinks out of it. You'll find all kinds of flaws, a few meltdowns you'll never find out about. And because they're all over the major aquifers, you'll never find out about it because they feed tens of thousands of farms downstream, each one of them. Like the whole industry is a curse. It's a curse on the 8 million species and a curse on humanity. There is no small modular reactors. They're holding up everything. They're Shanghaiing the future of humanity, 8 million species. That's the legacy of every facet of the nuclear industry. The International Atomic Energy Agency has said that although they have relatively low, stable operating costs, what the fuck are you talking about? Low. Like a coal plant doesn't have to spend $120 million a year. A coal plant doesn't have to spend $270,000 fucking dollars a day for maintenance, okay? A gas plant doesn't spend $270,000 fucking dollars each day for maintenance. The only shitheads that does that is the disgusting nuclear. It's just a despicable, like that whole cult, that's a death cult, that whole cult that works in the nuclear industry, they're real life goblins. You ever meet any of them? You ever come across any of them? You can tell right away, these are freaks. Oh, yeah. Get your freak on, eh? Van der Linde called for discipline from nuclear power industry, saying the future of nuclear depends on its ability to deliver on time and on budget. Far too often, realization of nuclear power plants has resulted in a significant additional cost and overrun. You don't hear that for coal, you don't hear it for gas, you don't hear that for oil, you don't hear that for geothermal, you don't hear that for wind or solar, you hear that for nuclear. Nuclear is nothing but a disaster, and it only wants the best of the best material, and you can never reuse the material because it's bombarded with neutrons. Where every other industry, you can recycle everything, bar nothing. Nuclear, you can at best 10%, and you shouldn't have done that. And then to suggest that nuclear power worldwide is the second largest source of low emissions electricity. And this is their narrative. They had no basis in science whatsoever. It's the most resource intensive in the history of humanity. And it's the most dirtiest industry because all the fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation. And as the plant gets older, you got more fuel in the pool. It's releasing more, splitting more atoms into the environment. Because once it comes out of the containment, there's no containment. So then the atoms are still splitting. What makes nuclear waste so dangerous? It's splitting atoms. And it never stops. This was a hilarious story. A small nuclear reactor hung up in Houston. Really? I was like, wow. Bullshit. Bullshit. Who got the license? Well, Last Energy doesn't have a fucking license. They don't have an application into the regulatory agency either. So they got a mock-up of a so-called small modular reactor. It doesn't even exist. And they're bringing that around to different cities and hanging it from a crane in order to say to the public, look, this is our small modular reactor. You got to support us, invest in us. They don't even have a product. And they're not going to because they don't have an application into the regulatory agency. It's a Ponzi scheme, see? South Korea team to push their small modular reactor designs with an eye on Canada. Yes, because Canada's... Why not build it yourself, you piece of shit? Why you got to come to Canada and do it? You morons. Why don't you do it in your own country first, you shit for brains? Well, you got an eye on Canada when you haven't even got one in your own country. Like, nothing so stupid, quite like nuclear. The Korean Atomic Energy Research Institute, you know, the guys who said with the nuclear quantum engineering degree said Fukushima was equal to 3 grams of sugar going into the ocean? Those guys. Another memorandum of understanding aimed at winning export markets for small modular reactor technologies that don't exist. We see this all the time, particularly with Canada. Canada signed an agreement with anybody with nuclear. It's like Canada is the most revolting parasitic nuclear industry, period. I don't know, the British are pretty bad, Dana, that's true. They're exporting the British here too, by the way. Foreign Minister Dar urges aggressive financing for nuclear energy projects. He was at the Nuclear Energy Summit. We covered him on Thursday's show. Yeah, another moron. Nuclear is the safest option. It's safe. It's cost effective. Like, what are you talking about? If it's safe and cost effective, you wouldn't need to aggressively finance it. Everybody would jump on the bandwagon right away. Most challenging nuclear cleanup starts, you guessed it, United Kingdom. The first skip, I had a nuclear, the British, they're really revolting parasites, aren't they, the nuclear industry over there? The first skip of nuclear waste has been removed as part of one of the most challenging phases of the cleanup at Sellafield. Sellafield, you know, where they got fuel ponds that nobody's seen, know what the frig is in there, and nobody can get close to it for over 50 years. The Zellolite skip is the first of 236, I guess they're talking about pallets, are they? I don't know. To be removed from the Magnox storage ponds. These are outdoor ponds with no containment. You know, surrounded by farms as far as you can fucking see. I apologize. We're going down that road tonight. It's too late now. It's easy to tell what kind of mood I'm in when I start swearing. Zellolites were placed in the pond between the 70s and 80s. No one knows for sure. To help absorb radiation. I don't give a frig what kind of material. If you got an absorbent material and you stick it in the pan in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2010, 20, for 55 years. I'm just going to leave all your clothes in the washer for 55 years and tell me how that works out for you. This is the first nuclear waste to be put into a new British-made storage container. Known as a self-shield box. Why is the British nuclear industry such scumbags all the time, I wonder? They go through a lot of them, right? That's where Stinkfoot is from too, right? Is Britain. Self-shield box. Surrounded by friggin' farms as far as you can see. And this is a weapons facility too on top of that. It's now closed, but they got 1,000 buildings. There's huge sections there where nobody's allowed to go near it. Nobody knows what's in it. The original people that knew were all dead. They kept no records. Dead man tells no tale, and they got no records. Drones can't even go near it. And you want your children, right, to work in the decommissioning because their children are not going to work. They're too deadly. It also frees up space in the pond, which makes our sludge. Like this, they put fuel rods in ponds for 80 years, and they broke open. This is not sludge. If you take a spoonful of that and put it in McDonald's, everybody who walks in McDonald's for 1,000 years will die within 20 minutes. That's not sludge, okay? They're sludge, but what we're talking about is not sludge. The nuclear industry, that's what we should call the nuclear industry from now on, sludge. Nuclear sludge. Right, Ralphio Grossi, the sludge. I like it. I really do, actually. It sounds about right, don't it? It also frees up space. If you took Ralphio and drowned him in that sludge, he probably would come back as Hulk or Spider-Man, right? Removal and cleanup work easier. The zero-light skip accounts for a quarter of the total number of containers in the pond. The rest of them are fuel rods, and they don't know what kind of grade of fuel rods. It's all splitting the atoms constantly. There's no containment around them. They really are a curse, aren't they? Once waste is placed inside the 29-ton self-shield box, it's checked regularly using remote cameras and a lid. Like there's no way the cameras are going to work. You're talking about fuel rods. The great British scam. Never easy. There's a 58,000 pound boxes. 58,000 pound boxes. And gamma shines, the X-rays, neutron bombardments will break that down in about 20 years. Europe must accept global consensus for nuclear power. What a revolting piece of shit he turned out to be, isn't it? Amsterdam Thorizon receives $10 million. 10 million euros. 10 million euros? I don't know. From French government to make nuclear energy more circular using molten salts. Look at them. There's a motley crew of scumbags, eh? 90% of the money goes to administration. That's why they're all smiling like they're special. Not a single one of them are special. Amsterdam-based Thorizon is a spin-off from the Nuclear Research and Consultancy Group, NRG. Remember them? Announced that it received 10 million euros from the French government. So what? The French government throws money at nuclear all the time. To develop a molten salt reactor. Oh, you mean like Santa Susana? You know, released 460 times more radiation than Three Mile Island. It's one of 10 startups supported by French government. They're constantly showing up, these startups, right? And 90% of the money is stolen. Goes to administration. Only 2 of the startups have been founded outside of France. Nucleo, which is from United Kingdom. And Thorazon, I can't remember. We covered them before. I can't remember where they're from. Are they United Kingdom too? I can't remember. I think they are. They intend to accelerate its ambition to develop a small modular reactor based on molten salt, using nuclear waste from conventional nuclear plant as an important. So these are just mixed oxide fuel reactors. There's nothing special about them, right? They've been around since the 50s. And every one of them melted down that I know about. And they're going to use nuclear waste from conventional nuclear plants as an important fuel source. Think of that statement. High SA fuel, right? Because that's the only way to get any power of it. And then once you take it out of the reactor and put it in a fuel pool to cool down for a couple of 100 years, it's splitting so many atoms, there's nothing going to survive it. These are people who are just morons. Right? They're just to loot the system. That's their job. These are not modular molten salt reactors. They don't exist. You got to exist before you can say there's something. And transform nuclear waste into carbon-free energy. Man, they just... Being a scumbag comes so natural, eh? The company has managed to reduce the amount of long-lived radioactive waste. No, it doesn't. First off, it doesn't even exist. And second off, you can't reduce the waste. You can't burn it up in a reactor. And all the other mixed oxide... And by the way, Sellafield has a mixed oxide molten salt reactor meltdown in 1957, right? The number 4, which is still releasing 8 million liters a day into the Atlantic Ocean. From just pouring water over it and run straight down into the Atlantic Ocean. It's just... To call it a scumbag just doesn't do it justice. It really doesn't. Why a Manhattan subway station could be a shelter in a nuclear attack. The station is buried 150 feet below, 140 feet rather, of bedrock. 140 feet? A subway station underground? 140 feet. Australia announced its $3 billion deal with the nuclear-powered submarines. They got to add another $360 billion onto that, mind you. So the $3 billion is just money they're giving away that Australians will have to do without. And $3 billion in renewables is a ridiculous amount of renewables. No, once they let... There's 7 of the 10 biggest weapons producers on the planet that set up shop now in Australia. So you kiss Australia goodbye. There's no future in Australia. The scum are there and they're never going to leave. They're just going to loot the whole fucking country, right? Nuclear contaminated monster. And all he got is this one picture. Bless their hearts. That's good enough. I'll take it. Nuclear energy is back. No, it's not. Of course it's not, right? Proponents adopt a declaration in Brussels at the first ever nuclear energy summit. There is no nuclear renaissance. Come on, man. Last year, nuclear went backwards 1.7 gigawatts. Renewables advanced 507. 507 gigawatts is probably enough to run Australia. The first ever nuclear degenerate summit, several countries pushed for nuclear power as a way to achieve the carbon neutrality. Simply not. You can go back and watch the presentation on it that I done on Thursday's show. I got little clips of all the little scumbags, not all of them, but the majority of them. These are scumbags. And, hang on here. I'll get going on. The first ever nuclear energy summit in Brussels, a number of countries pushed for nuclear power as a way to achieve the carbon. At the same time, renewable energy also remains key to the EU energy. And so what they were saying was that nothing can replace, wind and solar is not reliable, and you need a baseload energy for it to work, and the only thing that can do it is nuclear. That's what they were saying, right? Well, geothermal is better, is 10 times better than nuclear. Anything nuclear, gas, oil, coal can do, geothermal can do better. Promoting nuclear power was long taboo in Brussels, but a high-profile nuclear degenerate sent the message that the atomic energy was touted by its shitheads as the key to fighting climate change. Is back. The curse to humanity is nuclear. The key to fighting climate change. They didn't push that one at all, did they? The key to EU's energy and climate debate. Nuclear power is a way to keep carbon neutrality. Achieve carbon neutrality. They pushed that narrative over and over and over, right? WSP and Atkins to support nuclear waste geological disposal facility program. Nuclear waste services under a 10-year agreement supports geological disposal facility. It's the Animas equivalent of Deep Geological Repository in North America, right? I think this is United Kingdom. First off, anything United Kingdom tells you is suspect. They're just scumbags. I know I use that word a lot because we're talking about nuclear. That's the way it works. Scumbag and nuclear, they go hand in hand, right? Can't have one without the other. So if you had a kid with a flower, and you had a monster, and you had a demon, you had an apocalypse, you had nuclear power plants. The one that doesn't fit in is the flower, right? Everything else is nuclear. China to host global nuclear safety conference, but a row over Fukushima nuclear wastewater will not be on the agenda. I covered that, right? We covered that. Remember that picture? No, that's not the one. This is the one we covered. Sorry. China's going to host the global nuclear safety conference, but Fukushima is not on the agenda. Hard cases. That's nuclear. What are you going to do? If you expect nuclear to be sensible, then you're going to go insane. It'll drive you nuts, right? If you look at nuclear and say, what's the worst thing you can do? Then look for it, and that's what they're up to every time, right? And whoever done the picture screwed up the picture. Because you got reactor 3. Well, that should be reactor 4 right there. That's nothing like reactor 4. And the reactor 3, which of course is gone. There's somebody telling me we had lots of pictures of reactor 4 on this site. And I was like, what are you talking? I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of reactor 4, for goodness sakes. So I had no idea what that was all about. That was cryptic. Canada spent $1.4 million sending delegates to Constipated Party 28 conference in Dubai. Oh, it was more than that, but $1.4 million. Canada sent 633 people to the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And to boot, the pavilion would have cost $500,000, right? They haven't got that number there, do they? 633 people, and that's the one where they promoted nuclear. So Canada went all in because nuclear's on the chin. And look at them. And they always look the same, don't they, these scumbags? You can spot them a mile away. The breakdown of the 1.4 million Canadians spent to attend Constipated Party 28 is as follows. Transportation was almost $660,000 for transportation. Accommodation in 21 hotels was almost $500,000. And just for food, the scumbags spent almost $250,000. Taxpayers' money. They're not the final, as the invoices and claims are still being processed. There will be no audit. One net zero advisory board member. So what's the carbon footprint, I wonder? What's the carbon footprint of these guys? To avoid carbon. The only person he should have sent was one Canadian. We all know who that is. Mwah. They should have sent me down there. I would have sorted those fuckers out pretty quick. Earthquake of a magnitude 6.9 jolts Papua New Guinea. Oh yeah, that's one we were looking for. It was located 38 kilometers east and a depth of 40 kilometers. Japan will only be depth. They'll never give you the distance away. And there was another earthquake in Indonesia east coast. And they done the same thing where it was 65 miles southeast and at a depth of 47 kilometers. So 104 kilometers southeast of a city, and then the depth was 47. But Japan only gives you the depth, it never gives you the distance. Because it's a disgusting country. Everybody should abandon Japan. Never buy anything from Japan. Chefs opposed a nuclear repository in a letter. This is a great story. At least 5 First Nations chiefs, and I knew this was going to happen. That made me so happy when I read the story. In northwestern Ontario, have had a message for the Degenerate Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which is the industry. That's the industry, right? The Nuclear Waste Management Organization. They said no to nuclear waste in the region. Well, that's what the Nuclear Waste Management Organization is expecting. That's what they want is a no. They got no intentions of coming up with a solution, see? And because they're going to put it in a place, I can't remember, like there's 7,000 lakes right there too. Not counting the big, lakes and everything else. But there's like 7,000 small lakes just in that one area. And so they knew that the natives, and because they're going to have a referendum anyway, right? And so they give a bunch of the pro-nuke community money because they got $28 billion. And then the interest on that each year is a ridiculous amount. And so they throw millions of dollars around in the community. And they have a good old time. And the idea is create a divide in the community. So when you have a referendum, the biggest percentage will come out and vote no. And that's what they want. They don't want a solution because then you can't poison all the species and the insects and the birds and the animals. If they want a solution, they go 1,000 miles into the Canadian Shield and drill, baby, drill, right? But, if you do put nuclear waste deep in a deep geological repository, and the waste we're talking about is fuel rods, high level, the highest level, it's splitting atoms. And so just, the transportation there, it's vented. And they're going to repackage it at the site. And the site above ground is a square mile. It's going to be surrounded by 2 square miles of farms that they own. And they want the farm to keep producing so they can ship the radioactive fallout out of the area and into the communities. The whole world should be gone to war against this industry. This industry is going to exterminate you if you don't exterminate them. Nuclear waste poses the potential for a spill or leak. Well, everything is vented. And once you put it deep underground, it's going to break down the integrity of whatever containment you're using. And the current scumbags that the Nuclear Waste Management Organization commissioned a study with these two scientists. And they said if you put, a couple of millimeters of copper on the containment, it wouldn't break down for over 1 million years. It's the most ludicrous thing imaginable. Because of the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays will break down the integrity of anything. Copper is the least of its worry. It'll destroy copper. And so will water, right? And salt. And so it's better to... And this is what the nuclear waste is going to do for 100 years. Is they'll go around... They'll come in the community, they'll fuck with everybody's heads, and then they'll have a referendum. It's always about that, too. It's always about, no, we're going to have a referendum ultimately, and we're not going to do it unless you consent. And they know there's no way you want them there. And so then they move on. They have another 5 years of fucking the dog, so to speak. And the letter was signed by all the chiefs, so I'm quite proud of these guys for standing up. because it's easy to be bought off, right? It's very difficult to stand your ground. And so we're really proud of these people for standing their ground. We admire them and their integrity. Climate-conscious investors put nuclear dead last on the list of desirable Australian ventures. That's such a great story, isn't it? Ooh, let me see what we got here. Nuclear energy ranks last on the list of the climate technologies that big institutional investors want exposure to. According to a survey on climate-conscious investors with a $37 trillion under management. $37 trillion. The opposition, led by Peter Dutton in Australia, plans to propose locating nuclear power plants on the site of retired coal power plants, claiming it was saved having to build new transmission infrastructure. Which is Bill Gates' version, right? He's just regurgitating Bill Gates' version. And Bill Gates is regurgitating Quasi-Electric's version, right? Which is geothermal. Because geothermal, you can build it at gas, oil, coal, nuclear plants. And when the geothermal's ready, you turn it on and turn off the pollutants. And now you got geothermal just tapped right into the same infrastructure. So Peter Dutton is a dud. The Energy Department estimated it costs $387 billion to go nuclear. Well, you got the money, but you're going to blow it on a bunch of, not even a bunch, but a handful of nuclear subs that are useless. Go out and swim around the ocean for 20, 30, 40 years. Like for every day on the ocean, you need 5 days of maintenance, these nuclear subs, right? It's so stupid, it's ridiculous. And they corrupted the system, right? $387 billion to go nuclear. Again, not even half of that kind of money. You can do the whole country in geothermal and have it all done in about 10 years. The entire country then is good for ever because you can just fix it at will. That's it, I guess, for tonight. I went all over the place trying to find maps of Fukushima. I found just about everything you can imagine, but I couldn't find actual information about the site that was I need something that pre-nuclear meltdown or just that month, right? So we can identify that area. And let's go back and talk about that for another minute. We'll call it a night. And so apparently my volume was low at the beginning. I don't know. I'll have to go listen to it after to see what the hell happened. But I got no idea why it was low. Because everything on my end is normal. But now my volume is actually turned up louder than normal. But a lot of people were texting me. Bless your hearts. Thank you, by the way. And once I got the message out. So let me go back through this for 1 second. So we got reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the common spent fuel pool right here. Are all pixelated out of... we don't understand what's going on. We got reactor 6 is also pixelated. And the pump house and the stack in the original drone footage. I don't know when that footage was originally shot. I originally assumed it was the first week or two. But I really don't know, personally, right? So we got a map of the site because we found an abnormality, which is up right there above this spot here. And we're trying to identify that. And so that section up there is all pixelated out. But appear to be buildings there, and so we got some landmarks. That's one of the landmarks, and you can find the landmarkers over right there in that particular picture I just showed you earlier. And so it has a couple more markers that we know. That one right there, And there seems to be 3 or 4 buildings that are pixelated out. And this is quite a long ways away from the coastline. The coastline's that way. We have a couple of markers up there in yellow, and the red is another marker. But the blue is the section that's pixelated out. And we don't know what's going on. The blue is where those arrows are pointed. Is that blue section right there. And so those arrows are pointing to another abnormality that we discovered on Friday's video, which was a video of conscience. My conscience wouldn't leave me alone. And I had to go do another video. And thank God I did. Thank God I did. And the pictures ends up drawing the line all the way out to here. And then there's another set of pictures that also draws the line back. And so somebody was trying to warn you about whatever the hell is going on right there. And that's a big area that's pixelated. That blue section, it's bigger than that, but that's the general area. And the yellow and the red are the markers so we can identify it, which is this area here is the red, and then the 2 yellows up there. They're the markers so we can identify that whole area. And we did. And so I got a lot of work to do because it's really difficult to find something that identifies what that area in the blue was. But we know there's nothing else on this site that looks like that. There's only one spot that looks like that. And then the two blue roofs with the parking lot, and then that shape of the buildings over there. And the red up in the corner is the pixelated area. That's the second set of pictures. And when you go through that, that takes you, that draws a line down towards the ocean. Wait for it. All right, now it heads down towards, straight down towards the reactors to the common spent fuel pool. See, it's right here, and the reactor buildings up above it. And so when you zoom in on them, they're all pixelated. And we were trying to figure out why that was all pixelated. And then we discovered this other section. Look at this. And that was just that set of pictures. There were 2 sets that was really strange, that I didn't understand what was going on. And I missed it the first time. Now we know there's an abnormality going on. This is pixelated too. And so what the hell was up there that they pixelated? And there's a large area, multiple buildings that got pixelated. So what melted down up there, I don't know. But we intend to figure it out what that area was. And so far we got the first couple of clues are already resolved. But we don't know 100% what it is yet. And I'm not sure when we'll know. But at some point we're going to figure this out. And because I don't mind little mysteries, and I'm going to be working pretty hard to figure that out. Okay. Let me do the poll here. We got a poll on the screen. Boom. Should nuclear dumps, and weapon sites adjoining farms be closed to preserve life to the suite? Yeah, they should. Immediately, because they're hemorrhaging radiation into the ecosystem 24 hours a day. And so we got 40 votes. Thank you, everybody. Show's a little early tonight for the closure. We got 34 likes. So if you make it this far in the video tonight or tomorrow or something, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And I apologize for the first part was apparently low volume. And I've done a recap once we figured out it was a low volume. So if you're having problems with the volume when you start the video again, if you're catching this late and you're going to watch it later again, just jump ahead a little bit and the volume should get a little louder, and then I'll recap whatever I didn't get originally. We raised $50 from Nancy and Mark at Rogro, and $260 from James Lucid. Thank goodness. You folks are amazing. A very humble thing for me, but necessary and hugely appreciated, to say the least. And I picked up some equipment the weekend. I got to the shop a little bit too late, and they got kicked out at 6 p.m. But I got most of the stuff was on my list, and put some of it to work today. And I've been wondering all day about that area that I just showed you that was pixelated, right? That news section. And so if anybody knows where that area is or got some free time, look it up and put it in the comment section. Because I'm pretty sure everybody here would like to know what the hell is in that area, right? And I'll see everybody tomorrow night. Just trying to adjust the volume. I think what might have happened to the audio was I was fooling around with my audio system trying to get the phone to plug in and work. And sometimes when you screw up with these electronics, you got to reset your equipment. I didn't turn it off and turn it back on again. And that's probably what happened now that I think about it, everybody. Okay, see everybody tomorrow. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. See everybody on the other side. Not that far away. 24 hours away. No, 22 hours away. We'll be back on the line. Take care, everybody.